So, of course, the first question I want to ask you is, why do you want to hear God in the first place? Why do you want God to speak into your life? I mean, because quite honestly, I don't call my mom up randomly just to say, hey, by the way, Mom, I'm making dinner tonight. What do you think I should make? You know, I'm not looking for my mom to give me that kind of advice. I'm looking to my mom to give me other kinds of advice. You know, the kind of advice like, Mom, can you remind me how awesome I am? That's the kind of advice I want my mom to give me. So I call her on special days, and I let her call me on special days, and I make sure I shift the conversation always around to something that she can tell me I'm good at, where I will tell her something that happened in my week, and I'm not going to tell her all the things that I did wrong. You know, I'm not going to say, by the way, yesterday I yelled at my kids, and just wait around for my mom to say, oh, that was wrong, you know, you shouldn't do that. No, I have a relationship with my mom. She lives in California. I have a relationship with my mom on the telephone that is based entirely on the fact that I want her to say nice things to me. What do you want God to say to you? What kind of relationship do you have with God? Do you have a relationship with God that says, okay, I'm going to hide the things that I've done wrong, and I'm going to have a certain kind of life that says, okay, this is the aspect of my life that is not really where God needs to be, and this is the aspect of my life that I'm feeling really good about that I'm going to bring to God. I've known a lot of people who, when this side of their life, the side they're ashamed of, gets larger than this side of life, they just simply stop doing anything that relates to God altogether. They stop reading their Bible, they stop going to church, they stop talking to Christian friends, because this side of their life they know is so much larger than this side of their life that when God starts talking, He's got to hit this area over here, and they're saying, okay, I just don't want to hear that stuff right now, and so they shift out of that. But the thing is that God wants to speak to us to give us life, not just to tear us down. Everything He says to us is intended to lift us up. And when I come to God, there are a few things that I know in my heart I really want. I just jotted down a few things. I want proof that He's real. I want to know that God is real, and if He speaks to me in some sort of supernatural, spiritual way, I'm more inclined, I'm more able to think that He's real, that He's outside me. He's not just a figment of my own imagination or something imaginary in the Word. If God speaks to me, I know He's real. I also want a feeling that I'm special. I want Him to say things to me like, gee, I really love you. You're really nice. I think you did great things this last week. Pat me on the back kind of stuff. But I do actually, if I'm honest, I do need guidance. There are decisions in my life that I need to make where I need God to come into the midst and say, this is the direction to go. I need guidance. The question is, the problem is, I come to God with my agenda on what I want Him to accomplish in my life. And He doesn't always fit or fall in line with my agenda. And so I come to God wanting Him to say certain things to me. And so if He wants to say different things to me, I'm not likely to hear it. I'm not likely to pay attention if He's trying to say something different. Does that make sense? I'll just tell you a little bit of a story that I've got from my past. I wanted to hear God speak to me from as long ago as I can remember. I told you this the first week of this series, that when I was a kid, I learned the story of Samuel, and Samuel hears God speak to him, and Samuel says, I'm hearing something, and he runs and he talks to Eli, this guy, the priest who's in charge of the temple. And he runs to Eli, he talks to Eli, he says, did you call me? And Eli says, no, it's not me. And this back and forth happens over and over until finally Samuel says, okay, well, maybe it's God. Eli says, go, maybe it's God. Samuel says, okay, maybe it's God. And then it turns out it is God, and God tells Samuel a message. And I remember hearing that story, thinking to myself, I want to hear God speak to me like that. And so in my life, I have done a lot of things to try to convince God that I'm worth talking to. One of the things that I did when I was a kid, I was a teenager, I was in high school, and I was raised in a Baptist church. My dad's a Baptist pastor, and one of the traditions of Baptist people is that we believe God is really, really, really old, and He's too tired really to talk to us today. No, I'm just kidding. The Baptist people don't really say that God is too tired to talk to us today. What they actually say is God doesn't need to because it's all in the Bible. Now, my dad didn't believe that, but the culture that I was in kind of believed that, God only talks to us through the printed word. He never really speaks into our heart. And so I grew up in an environment that was really kind of, for lack of a better word, dry. For lack of a better word, it was dry. And when I was in high school, I discovered that there were these other people who believed that God like talked to them and stuff. And like when they would sing songs, they would raise their hands, and they were singing cool songs too. It wasn't like some of the old hymns that we were doing. They were singing like songs that had a beat to them, and they kind of had a little rhythm and stuff, and they would raise their hands, and then they did weird things like speaking in tongues and stuff, and I was unfamiliar with all of this stuff and whether or not it was even biblical, and I don't have the time today to get into all that stuff. What I want to just simply share with you today is that I went to both youth groups because I was like, I got to cover my bases. You know, if God's going to talk to me, He might talk to me over here, He might talk to me over there, but all I need to know is there's two different ways of looking at this thing. I got to be in both places as much as I can. So I went to both youth groups, and so on Wednesday night, I was totally uncomfortable with all these people who would raise their hands and talk in other languages. And then on Sunday night, I was with all these other people who were really uncomfortable because they just sat there and did nothing. And so it was this struggle for me. Well, my whole life has been like that. It wasn't just high school. When I got into college, one of my roommates was a guy who every Wednesday, he fasted. And he seemed to be one of these dudes who is spiritual. You know what I'm talking about? A person who just has an aura about them, that they're always thinking heavenly thoughts, and maybe they've always been good and stuff. And so he fasted every Wednesday, and I thought, well, I'm going to get in on this action. And so I started fasting, and this one Wednesday, I remember I said to myself, I'm going to imitate Bart. I'm going to wake up this morning. I'm not going to eat anything. And I tell you, I made it all the way to 10 o'clock before I really regretted my decision. And I said, I'm not going to, 10 a.m., that is. And so by the time lunch rolled around, I was really upset and really irritable, and I just barely made it through the rest of the day. And in fact, I decided that I was going to have dinner because as long as it was daylight, I survived. But you know, then when night came, I thought, the day is over, I can stop my fast. I've done a lot of other things. Let's see. After I graduated from seminary, I then got a job as being a pastor up in Chicago. And when I first got there, I had other people come up to me and they prayed over me. They laid their hands on me and prayed over me. And here's the deal. So far in my life, double youth group, fasting on Wednesday, having people lay their hands on me and pray for me, I never felt anything. Okay? I never felt God do any mystical movements in my heart. I prayed and I prayed and I prayed and I said, God, would you do something in my heart? And I never felt anything, you know, because I was expecting some type of, I don't know, Twitter patient or something. I was expecting some weird feelings and they never came. So then I went through the ordination process, which is basically a huge PhD kind of exam, but for pastors.